let's go ahead and get started and get things. The friskiest of foxes is taking a very well-deserved day off, so he will not be joining us today. So we're going to go ahead and start off with kicking over to Dream.
Yeah, just give a quick update across growth pillar today. So that's going to start with me. I'll just give a few updates on the partnership side, biz dev side, and then we're going to have pretty much everybody representing parts of growth across the impact, creative, community events, and marketing, then open it up to all the related questions as well, if we have any. But to start, 2 weeks ago, I was in Miami for Bitcoin Miami, and we had just a very mini presence there. I think the theme going forward is we'll be trying to have a presence at as many events as possible. The lowest will be biz dev and maybe some marketing. It was pretty cool. We had our first digital billboards displayed there. I think some people came up to me and were like, "Oh, I saw the DeFi Kingdoms billboards." And that was pretty cool coming to and from the air. I know it's something simple, but it is a level up, and it was cool to see, and it's cool to see a reaction from. I think we're going to continue to ramp up our marketing efforts there. In terms of what came from the conference, some might have seen, I think a video was shared on Twitter of Mr. Wonderful or Kevin O'Leary was there and waited for my chance to push through the crowd, give him a 30-second quick pitch, and got really excited. I actually met with his team, WonderFi, the very next day with Fox, and already talking about ways we can work together. They're really interested in DeFi Kingdoms. They have big games on mobile already, and just seeing what might be the future with working with and collaborating between the two. So more to come on that. Probably not super quickly. I'm sure we'll be working on it over time, but both sides very exciting. That was a big win. Another one was interacting with a team, and I hope I say this called. They're a very interesting kind of trading analytics platform. Their goal is to continue to build and scale something like a Bloomberg terminal, but made for DeFi. So again, still looking into it and building that very high level initial relationship. But it would be really cool, I think, if we had presence on DFK Chain 1 from Auction to integrate it into the game, some type of trading analytics. I don't think most dexes even have that. You kind of have to hop over to Dex Screener or others or aggregators and so on. So considering there to enhance the overall DeFi experience for those there in DeFi Kingdoms, more for the trading. So more to come there. And then a bunch of folks from Binance as well. They were very proactively just interested in learning more and everything. And as we have been historically, I think we've been very careful on all centralized exchange like listings, and less than just a listing, but being able to be traded over there for a number of reasons. I think a concern from the community is, hey, we want our volume to primarily live in the game, because then majority of those in the game actually benefit. And I think I agree with that. At the same time, we also want people to know what Jewel is and Crystal and others, and just finding the right balance of what that means. One thing I did ask, though, there was nothing really decided in any of these conversations. I'm just reporting on progress. One thing I did ask, though, that I thought was interesting is they said that when you list through Binance, and I think that I've heard this from a couple other centralized exchanges as well, you can specifically request no perpetual contracts, no futures, no like synthetic shorts. So it's all an info gathering when it comes to centralized exchanges. We're definitely not rushing in any direction there, but those are two interesting updates from that discussion. Outside of that, with the DeFi protocols that we announced, we've been having ongoing discussions with Banky. That's progressing. I think we're speaking with them again this week. And DopeX as well. We talked to them last week. DopeX looking to provide option vaults, I believe, on Harmony and DFK Chain is the current tentative plan. So we are looking to see if we can get those built out and what that timeline would be. But I think with all DeFi related protocols to build on DFK Chain, at least, it will require price oracles and feeds. So that's progressing as well. I think Mr. Fawn has been running point on that. So a lot happening as it relates to DFK Chain launching, external partners coming in, other games as well. A couple games you talked about, identifying ways that we could use the DFK tokens and NFTs in other games. I think that's progressing maybe to a slower extent, but I don't want to take the whole time to give an update here, but those are the primary updates on the partnerships.
Awesome. Very nice. I appreciate it. I'm also super jealous that you got to meet Mr. Wonderful. Not that I could give him an effective 30-second pitch. I would just stand there and stare at him wide-eyed because it's Mr. Wonderful. And that's pretty cool. As Dreamer mentioned and reminded me that I did not mention, yes, if you have questions for us, please raise your hand. Obviously, the growth side is who's up here today. So those are the questions that we'll be able to answer. But if you do have a question, raise your hand and join the queue. We are going to be taking the live questions as well. With that, I wanted to go to Sunbear for an update on his end.
Hey, everybody. Great to be with you here today. We're going to give an update on some charity work that's going on. You may have seen some information tweeted out. After 1 week for the UNICEF charity, we were able to get over $153,000 in donations. That's 3,763 actual unique donations through that process. We're sneaking up on 2 weeks now, and just encourage you, if you'd like to donate, to go to in-game, go into the jeweler, and there's a little NPC in there in each of the jewelers where you can do that has the word charity over the top. So really excited about that response from our community, and excited to match all of the donations up to $250,000 at the end of the month of April. Really excited about that. And also, you may have seen the posting in Discord yesterday that we are already looking to what are our next areas of focus? What charities or efforts do we want to really look at? And I put out there a question for you all to answer. Who would you like to see us focus on and why? And then I'm going to compile all of that information, bring it back to you all as our community, and we're going to have a vote to see which ones we want to focus on over the next several months. So just really exciting about that. It looks like I've already got 34 responses for that effort, so I encourage you to go check that out. And that's my update for today.
Fantastic. Most definitely keep submitting to that. If you check the announcements channel, you'll see the announcement from Sunbear with the link to the form to be able to submit your recommendations and why. And so we're really excited to see what y'all come up with as well. With that, I'm going to go to myself because I've placed myself in the middle. So essentially, mine is very rapid here. I think you all know, because you are our community, that we're always looking for new ways to interact with our community, and we're always looking for, ways to engage and get feedback, have fun, different contests, like really anything. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to reinforce my own message, which is that my door is always open, not only for help, support, whatever the case may be, but if you have ideas on how to make the community better, fun things to do in the community, things you want to see us do with the community, let me know. That's what I'm here for. We're always looking for new ways to talk to y'all and interact with y'all, and you're going to be seeing some stuff coming from our end with that in the very near future as well. But if you have thoughts, if you have ideas, tell me. There's no better way to maximize our interaction with our community than the ways that our community wants. So please don't be shy, don't hesitate. I am not that mean of a person. And with that, we're going to go to Spicy for some marketing updates.
Bolon is not mean at all. I'll just say that. Thanks, guys. I will just give a few brief overviews of some of the bigger things we've been working on with marketing. It's been a really important task for us to get our accounts verified. So our Twitter account or all of our social media platforms, you do have to go through like an application and submit these things, and we're trying to do it the right way. This is kind of part of our overall brand authority strategy. So we're hitting that really hard over this past week, as well as security, safety. We want to make sure that we're getting ahead of any kind of scam sites you might have seen out there. And we're working on our SEO as well, our search engine optimization, just to make sure that we're really establishing our brand and being the first site that you see when you're looking for DeFi Kingdoms. It's very important. So hopefully by the next time we get on an AMA, we can officially announce that our verifications are through, and that'll be a really awesome milestone to celebrate. Like I said, we've been hitting our SEO pretty hard, especially over this past week alone. One thing that we can celebrate now is our team officially taking down almost 300 scam sites. It's not over yet. We still see those sites trying to pop up, but we're taking it very seriously. So just always make sure, I'm sure Bolon could give you a better security update, or the Knights. Just always make sure you're clicking on the official DFK websites and links. Don't click on any links. And another thing we're working on is onboarding and education. This has been a really important initiative of mine since the start of this project. Some things in the pipeline. We're looking for an overhaul of our tutorials. We're seeking to create some really in-depth tutorials, looking at ways that we can put it on multiple formats, reading, something more interactive in the game, YouTube tutorials, videos, things like that. We want to make it as accessible as possible to all of our communities. And so we're going to be hitting that really hard. And there's even been some talks with Avalanche on working on something really high quality there. And I'll let Risen talk about all the events that we're going to, and Dreamer touched on it a little bit, but we are planning some fun campaigns. We've been talking to Risen and just surrounding the upcoming events. We're still working out all the details, but we are looking heavily into things like Dreamer mentioned, out of home advertising is what it's called, those billboards. We did receive a lot of positive feedback about those that we set up for Miami BTC. So we are going to look at some other options. Overall, we've just been focused on gathering data. We're working with all the departments on this team and the community to formulate smart decisions for growth and just the betterment of the project. And we're really just balancing all of the immediate tasks in front of us, but we're never losing sight of the bigger picture. A lot going on. I'm really excited about all the initiatives we are working towards and hope to see you at the next events, especially. I'm really excited about those.
Thank you. Thank you. Always appreciated. And I am going to take this moment to absolutely plug the Security Basics channel in Discord, but also just in general, don't click links. Bookmark sites that you use regularly, such as DeFi Kingdoms, Kingdom.watch, whatever the case may be. That way you don't have to worry about a typo in the address bar when you go to visit that site because it's bookmarked. But definitely check out the Discord Basic channel in Discord, or Security Basics, I'm sorry, the Security Basics channel in Discord. If you have any questions, if you think something is suspicious, whatever the case may be, please come and ask somebody before you connect your wallet to something. It is crypto if it's gone, and we don't want that because it's sad. So please be careful, be smart, and if you're ever unsure, don't do it. Ask and verify. With that, let's go over to Pieface for some creatives updates.
Hey. Cool. So yeah, in terms of creative, our department works very closely with everybody in terms of like our marketing materials, graphics, but I would like to, okay, cool. That was weird. But anyways, what was it? Oh, I left things at a cliffhanger. Yeah, so I'd like to actually focus on merch for a little bit. I know it's something very high in demand, very much hype, but I would like to give an update on what we selected. We have selected what we'll include in our first drop. What'll be in there is what we handed out in events. So you get a chance to get one of those Serendale shirts or a Christabel shirt, bloater beanie from East Denver.
Sorry to interrupt you. Apparently other people can't hear you. I can hear you, but everybody in the chat is saying they can't hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you too.
Some people are saying they can hear. Some can't.
Can't hear you?
I can't hear either. So that's why I thought I had something I muted or something, but maybe Discord is starting to do weird things like it did last.
Hi, do you want to hop off the stage real quick and hop back on and see if that'll kick it through? All right. We're going to give Pi just a second. Yeah, it looks like half of the audience can hear, half of the audience cannot.
Super weird.
All right. Pieface is back.
Can you guys hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, from
Okay, cool. Yay. All right. So I'll start with the beginning and just go quickly. But so just want to let everybody know, for our merch store, we selected what we'll include for our first drop. And it'll be like the Serendale shirt, Christabel shirt, things that were passed out at the events. So you could get your chance at getting a bloater beanie that we handed out at East Denver, bloater pin at Avalanche Summit, stickers, crystal hat, jewel hat. But we also have new items that we'll include. And a sneak peek I'll give is that we'll be putting out a new hat. It's a new bullish hat. I actually shared this in the chat yesterday, I think, or the day before. But we also have a bloater fanny pack that we're working on. But will it be a bloater shaped fanny pack, or will it be a fanny pack with a bloater on it? No, we'll see. That'll be the surprise. One last thing on the merch in the merch store is that I'll let you guys all know that we're working on making Jewel as a method of payment. I think that'll be a really interesting thing to do. We've seen Bored Ape Yacht Club do their ape coin for their merch store. So that's something we want to try for ourselves as well and make that possible. So we're working on that. But yeah, I'm glad everybody could hear that. But yeah, thanks everyone.
Especially for your update. That was one we needed to make sure everybody could hear. If we started talking about merch and half of the audience couldn't hear it, a revolution on our hands. All right. And last but not least, we are going to go to Risen for a events update.
Hey guys. So I know you guys have all been curious and messaging me about when's the next time we're actually going to leave our dungeons and show our faces. And it looks like the next thing that's on our radar is going to be a little thing that's happening in Austin, Texas. So Decentral and Consensus are definitely on my radar. We're in conversations right now to try and figure out the scope and how many people are going and what we're going to do. But you can be pretty safe in assuring yourself if you make your way to Texas during those dates that you'll see some DeFi Kingdom stuff. That's about it. The rest of the year, we're still looking at. I'm in planning stages for a lot of stuff, but yeah, more to come. And I promise it won't be like a day before the actual event this time, or maybe it will. Depends.
That's a bold promise.
Yeah, we might just tell you after we show up.
Surprise! No, that's exciting. I think we're all excited for more events as always. So we are going to start moving into some live questions here. Oh, real quick, actually, Risen chat would like to know the dates.
Oh yeah, that might be helpful, wouldn't it be? Uno momento. So we are looking at Decentral is June 7th and 8th, which is like the kickoff for Consensus, which runs the 9th through the 12th. Both are in Austin, Texas. Not 100% sure on everything we're going to be doing, but that's the time frame is June 7th through the 12th for both events.
Very nice. Much appreciated with the little extra snippet there. So now we are going to move into some live questions here. As always, I'm going to start polling up a couple people at a time so that we can keep things moving. When you do come up onto the stage, please make sure you are muted until it is time for your question. However, we already have our first person on stage. Metas, how's it going, man?
It's awesome to hear you guys again. I hope the mic quality is somehow. Yeah, sure. Your guys are the growth department, and I have two topics of, say, the perspective that the team right now has. So when we started to follow you guys along at the start of DFK, you guys were a small team. Some people joined in. The project obviously exploded. And now you've even launched your own chain. This is incredible. I have a question, though, on the perspective you guys have on where the original Serendale now fits into this larger story of you guys becoming a development studio and you guys launch DFK Chain. Specifically, to make it very concrete, I was a bit surprised that when you launched Crystal Veil, that the main focus was on what Crystal Veil would be, and that the new players weren't really, or the new player base wasn't really pushed or guided towards Serendale. So I was just wondering how this entire picture now frames in your mind, because when you started, Serendale was the only thing there, and now you guys have a multitude of projects. So how does this all fit together, and how do you guys see the ecosystem move forward? What will DFK be? Will it still be centered around Serendale, or will it be built around DFK chain and everything that will be built surrounding?
Good question. I think I heard a number of different questions in there, so I'm going to answer them as I heard them, and then you can add on to it if that works. So I think the first really simple question was, are we still focused on Serendale? And I would say yes. I think the features are significantly more abundant in Serendale, and we'll continue to release things there, may even release things there first or in tandem. I think like with the DopeX discussion as well with partnerships, given Harmony already has price oracles and others, it's a lot easier for those that other protocols that want to not only build on DFK chain, but also on Harmony. We're making efforts to bring other things to Harmony as well and into Serendale. So a lot of focus there. I think with features that have been mentioned coming up, a lot of them will live in Serendale, given Crystal doesn't even have many of the really base core zones out yet. So just want to be very clear. It is multi-chain gaming. We have two realms. One is very new. One is a bit more developed. They both have a long roadmap ahead. There will be a larger basis between the two now. But over time, we'll see that kind of close, and we'll see them continue to progress together is, I think, the long-term vision in terms of the in-game realm. Why upon launch we didn't push people directly to Harmony immediately, I think is more strategy. We wanted to celebrate Crystal Vale. It was a huge accomplishment. It's beautiful. It's its own token. Many people were coming over from Serendale. Many were new and coming over from Avalanche C chain, and many were not on either of those chains and actually coming in from others and trying it out. It overwhelms people to be directed so many other places right off the bat. However, with Gen Zeros on the horizon and being able to summon and having the new classes be integrated into the existing pool, that's going to be really exciting. It's going to be that first chance to really, with good reason, have the cross-chain experience. Because when you have a dex that exists on Serendale, that is mainly with the pairing token Jewel, and a dex that exists on Crystal, the pairing token Crystal, there's not a whole lot of really cross-chain stuff you can do. You could do some cross-chain, pricing arbitrage of Jewel potentially is maybe the basis moves and a few others, but not much. However, when you have summoning and a tavern and new hero classes and everything, I think that's where your question comes in, and the strategy of saying, let's say you're in Crystal Vale, you have a shiny new hero, and summoning is fun, and seeing, what rarity you get and what skills and everything, but you can't do anything with it yet. However, differing from back in November, October, you have a quest available right across that NFT bridge over to Serendale. So I think that's where you'll see a bit more effort to see marketing in others where, hey, you have heroes, you'd like the quest then? Get questing. Questing will come to Crystal Vale, but it's not going to be there right upon the launch of the heroes. So hopefully that for those that are interested, and that will promote some multi-chain gaming experience for them. But up until now, the focus was stability in the launch and birth of Crystal Supply, which majority of was handed to the community, and all the while in a pretty bumpy global macroeconomic environment. And I think that the strategy was good, but to your point, we're going to continue to build out the multi-chain experience. And at least in phase 2 of summoning, that's what you would expect. Does that answer your question, Matez?
Yes, that's awesome. Perhaps just what I heard, and it was very extensive as an answer. So I think that the Crystal Vale launch then is, let's say, 2-staged. Is that now first the AVEX sides completely and the DFK chain side is fully launched as the gardening tool and the realm is opening. And then as soon as heroes will be launching, that's when you will start funneling new players towards Serendale as well and start the cross-chain functionality. I think that's very clear. It's helpful to also see your perspective here. So thank you for that. I have
I would just caveat the funneling. We open the bridges and the opportunity for people to do what they want, but I don't think we're like funneling back and forth. It just, in my mind, if you're so excited and you got a hero and you're on Crystal Vale and you want to do something with it, there's a place to do that. So the options are there, and I guess community and participants can make the decisions best for their own bags and their own personal interest. But we're not trying to herd or force or manipulate anything in the economy is all I'm trying to say. But you said you had one more quick question.
Yeah, and I think it's more of a perspective question. I know that you guys won't be able to answer it fully, so I'm just prefacing that. It has to do with the upcoming unlock system for Jewel. So it's not mechanics related. Everything that's related to the mechanics of how Lock Jewel will unlock has been extremely transparent from the start, so props for that. I'm more talking about you guys as the growth side of DFK, how the perspective is on how you guys see that moment happening, and if you have specific general tactics to deal with that. Is that something that's part of your strategy moving forward, or is that a big event that still needs resolving? I'm really specifically asking about what your perspective is. I'm not asking about very concrete strategies, if that makes sense. I'm just really looking forward to hear what the team thinks about how to handle that.
Yeah, so I think before answer that, we should just make a baseline of what it really means. So what is the unlocking? The locking, I think, given slower Harmony blocks, is going to be sometime in August or so. I don't know the exact date, and I'm sure it'll continue to move around depending on the speed of the blocks. I think many people see that and they look at the total supply and then the total supply in circulation. And one fact we should understand is The price is really dependent on market cap divided by Joule in circulation. And as we have emissions, ignoring the unlock for a second, as we have emissions that a higher percentage is unlock upon them Joule being minted through those that are in the gardens, then that adds to the Joule in circulation. But when we come to the unlock period, that will, and I'm going to recap it. I know you said it's very clear, but I think some still think that it's a cliff, that it's upon that day, boom, it's all unlocked. And now there's like a huge supply and it adjusts the price. Unlocks linearly over 1 year. Linearly over 1 year. So if we look at all of that needs to be unlocked, and we look at what rate of Joule per week, let's say, and you compare that to previous epochs, I know that people say it different ways, I like epoch, previous epochs of how much Joule is being minted, the inflationary impact isn't too dissimilar to what we've been experiencing through the growth. I just want to make that very clear, that if we go and we map everything out, obviously over time there's going to be more and more supply. That's been the case the whole time. That's today. That's yesterday. There's more supply in circulation today than a month prior, and it'll be the same tomorrow. So what happens as we get closer to that, as emissions get lower, then unlocking increases. So unlocking just replaces the higher emissions, right? So I'm going to talk about it in a second, but I want to make sure that we have that baseline. It's not that we've had this trickle of emissions and then this huge cliff of new Joule flooding the market in the short term and just disrupting the whole thing. I think the whole plan and design has been to have a constant flow of Joule releasing into circulation, initially through that first year through various levels of unlocked Joule as a reward for LP staking. And then in phase 2, as rewards for LP staking are lower in terms of emission, but higher in terms of unlock at that 100% unlock, then you start slowly unlocking what was locked. So what's the plan to combat any cliff? I think the first plan is awareness and education, because there's a lot of people that look at that and they think that on that day, everything's unlocked and it is truly a cliff. I think it would be helpful, honestly, to have some analysis that actually compare points in time over X or Y period, how much emission is being added to the supply, and to see how, as we enter that period, how it might differ from different points in time in the prior year. I think that'll help a lot of people just have a visual and understand it. So working on that. There's been other ideas and thoughts about what we can do with locked Joule prior to unlocking or even during. Maybe that's a discounted percentage of purchase or something there. So we're trying to be creative and innovative without disrupting that too much. I think there have been a lot of comments on the locked Joule kind of escrow service that we don't directly participate in, but we facilitate safe transfers of entire locked amounts from one account to the other. And being unfortunate that so many people sell it at such a low percentage. Again, we're not trying to manipulate any of that. The best thing we can do for an increase in supply, completely independent of locking or unlock period, is to continue to grow our offering within the metaverse of DeFi kingdoms. And from a growth perspective, we do that by marketing to attract new participants, to educate those new participants, to build a strong community, show up at events and establish our presence so that more people are aware and know about us, and then to really integrate other games and protocols within the ecosystem. So as we have other DeFi protocols come in and we can front end in and there's a fee sharing and we get more activity there, as we get other games using our NFTs and DeFi Kingdoms recognizing their NFTs, we really need to continue to build the user base, the functionality and utility to support the ever increasing supply, that supply that's been increasing the last 8 months, increasing today, tomorrow, and also increasing upon unlock. But that increase upon unlock is also going to be coupled with a much lower emission rate relative to previous months. Hopefully, I'm not beating a dead horse too much here, but I'm trying to, in a very respectful way, say, although people are interested in the unlocking period, many ways that I've seen people perceive it, in my opinion, it's a little overly aggressive and not understanding that it's an inflationary measure that has been here all along. I think we need data to help us all see exactly how much more or less it might be relative to any point in time that came prior to the unlocking date. Does that help answer your question? I know as you prefaced it, it's not like we can give a perfect answer, but hopefully that helps a little bit on how we're thinking about it, what we're focused on. There are some things in the background and what we can do with Lockjewel to help there, but there's nothing that we're trying to manipulate it further to have it be not a problem, because it really is an inflationary measure that is not necessarily new. It's a new source of inflation, but the resulting inflation isn't necessarily a cliff of 100x more supply in a second type of worry that I think a lot of people have misinterpreted it to be.
Okay, awesome. So that's a great answer. Just maybe to recap, recap what I've heard and confirm if that's true. In very short terms, and I'm going a lot briefer than what you did, I think what you guys spoke about is the main thing will be educating people on what specifically the difference will be when Jewel starts to unlock, and specifically what the difference of inflation of the total supply will be at the unlock time versus the emissions from the gardens throughout the history up until that point, to make people aware of what the difference will be the main strategy. And then in a secondary way, try to grow the player base and the active user base to make sure that Jewel gets used a lot more often by a lot more people, which will then hopefully offset the increasing supply by increasing the demand. Those are the two main plays. Beyond that, in terms of specific upcoming mechanics or new usage, there's nothing concrete right now that you can disclose. That's the very short version.
Yeah, I would just flip them. I think the primary focus is to keep building, to get closer to gameplay, pets, new classes with Gen Zeros, make different type of unique high-level quests, partnering with other unique games and protocols. That's all I would just say primary. I might sound a little facetious right now, but that's our primary focus. Secondary is, as always, education and transparency is important. And I think with something like this, it has become clear in my brain when I think about this that we need to do a good job of just laying out the facts and repeat it a lot, like it unlocks over a year, it's not a cliff and everything. But I think we could just easily put what is the expected emission during that period versus the prior year. And so everybody can have all the facts, and then that might in itself calm a lot of people's worries, but that's not our primary focus. So that doesn't necessarily quote unquote fix anything. You just then know. But the primary focus definitely is continuing to build our player base, our functionality, utility, and invite new people to come join. A caveat, though, as well, is we're kind of at the mercy of the overall cycle of crypto, cycle of risky assets, cycle of where the global economy is with conflict and monetary policy and a lot of other things that nobody here can. I think crypto has definitely been experiencing some trading more on the downside, but so has risky assets globally as a result of things that nobody at DeFi Kingdoms really has control over. Primary focus is to build, expand content and users. Then we got education and other things in the world that we're trying to pay attention to, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Very thankful for the perspective. And probably I'll ask about these things a bit in another month, but I'm looking forward to the progress by then. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Metas. Always appreciate the questions. J Crypto, what's going on? Fix it.
Hello? Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. Sorry about that. Anyways, I'm a huge fan of the project. I appreciate all your guys' hard work. I'm excited about the future. I have a two-part question. The first is, with all these new partnerships in the DeFi space, will we be able to borrow against our Jewel? For example, maybe borrowing stable coins against Jewel so we don't have to sell the Jewel if we believe in it long term. And if that is something that's coming, approximately when would you expect it? I think that if we can get that out before Jewel unlocks, that might also help alleviate some sell pressure if people are able to access stablecoin value instead of selling their Jewel. And the second part of the question is, has the team ever considered paying the team members in stable coins? For example, if borrowing is allowed, maybe the team could borrow stable coins against Jewel and pay the team in stables instead of, I imagine they're paid in Jewel as of today, but that might create sell pressure on Jewel. But if they were paid in stables, I think that would alleviate some sell pressure.
Yeah, good questions. I think first, are we going to be able to borrow on Jewel? I think that's directly related to our efforts to bring in other DeFi protocols and partner with them, gamify their protocols, have some fee sharing feed into the related jewelers and so on. So right now, most immediately, we're focused on those efforts with Banky. And it's just in order to build on DFK chain and provide any type of lending services on DFK native tokens, we need price oracles. We need really efficient pricing between chains so that any potential risk management models could work efficiently. So the timeline is more consistent, not on how quickly people can build there, but on when we could get proper price speeds. We don't have that issue on Harmony, so I think we are looking as well for folks that are interested to support that and work with us in a similar way. When it comes to options, though, Dopex is looking to build both on Harmony and DFK chain, and that those are more fully paid for option vaults, but it is usage of your Joule. So if you wanted to write a call, for example, and you had 100 Joule, you could deposit that into the Joule call option vault and receive a premium that somebody essentially would have been paying to buy the option to buy your Joule at a fixed strike price, for example. So if Joule is $5 and you deposit it there with a strike of 10, and you're like, man, if somebody makes me sell my Joule at $10, I doubled my money, I'm fine with that. And if they don't, I get to pocket the premium of whatever, $50 or whatever it is. That's another way that you can hold Joule but participate in the overall DeFi landscape without necessarily selling it. So outright lending, it's a bit different. You never really get liquidated as you do if you were to lend and then, borrow. And the price drops of your collateral, and then you have essentially a margin call or an auto liquidation. So a few things on the horizon. Your question of timing, if it would be there before unlocking, I sure hope so. I think my preference would be before. There's some variables here we cannot control, unfortunately. I would say that probably in my mind, a 2-month time frame is realistic, keeping in mind that very few of all of these inputs are DeFi Kingdoms devs that would be building here. So I don't want to misspeak for anybody, but it's not going to be hey, next week you can go borrow some Joule in game or option vaults. I think we do need a little bit of time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thanks. And then do you have any follow up on the second part of the question of maybe possibly paying I don't know how the team is paid today. I imagine they're paid in Joule, but if they are, maybe in the future, maybe taking it to the community for a vote to pay them in stables to maybe alleviate some sell pressure on Joule.
So the team is currently paid in Joule. I'm going to play devil's advocate a little, though. If we pay in Joule and then somebody holds it, and I would say probably a good chunk of the team, if not majority, hold at least a portion of what they're paid on average over time. There will be those that have real life obligations that don't allow them to do that, but most people, I think, are trying to also participate to a fair extent. And that means holding Joule, not just like dumping it all. We also have some very clear guidelines, and I'll recap here that nobody on the team or directly involved in the project can sell more than 0.1 price impact of any pair every 6 hours, and when the price is up, essentially. And when it's down, it's 0.05. In terms of price impact of teams selling Joule upon getting paid, we're very cautious to make sure that we don't really move the market in any way. But let's say that the entire amount we're going to pay has to be paid in stable. In order to do that, because the wallets are still funded in Joule, somebody's got to sell Joule to get a stable. So rather than saying 100% of everything we've paid this week is the result of a stable that was sold, right now we're paying in Joule, where less than 100 amount on most weeks, I'm guessing, maybe even every, is not transitioned to stable and is probably put in the jeweler or the gardens or held in a hard wallet somewhere. So which one of those has less sell pressure, all else equal? I think the paid in Joule option does. However, I do think that long term, it would be more stable, consistent, to have a treasury built out of stables that maybe there was a hybrid pay mechanic where a good portion of that pay was in stables. And then I think from like a treasury perspective, you could be very careful about when you build out that buffer and when you don't. I think doing a mass sell of Joule every week in a bear market, when there is some volatile news, I actually feel less comfortable about that. I wouldn't like to do that. But if we're at the peak of what feels like a strong bull market, should we have the ability to, and should we be incentivized to build out more of a stable based like corporate treasury to rely on making up majority of pay? I think that's a great option. Not sure where we'll go, probably somewhere in the middle. But I guess the answer is definitely thought about it. Is this point in time, this price, the best time to do that, given the 100% requirement to sell the amount paid out? I personally don't think so, but I think we'll discuss more. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And yes, please do not sell Jewel right now. I think we'd all appreciate that. But no, I really appreciate the insight and you guys being so open. I didn't realize you had those restraints on the team and how much they can sell to avoid price impact. I think that's very well thought out. So I appreciate your guys' time and thank you so much again for all your hard work. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to do one more question and then we're going to have to wrap up for the day. But let's go to Night Cookie.
Hi, so I had a couple quick questions. The first being, what would be the summoning cost on Crystal Vale if it's going to be like 1-to-1, how it is on Sarandale, or since there's less total supply, if it would be maybe a 4-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratio? And then if you could give any additional information on the date of the Pets launch and the new skill quests that are coming out.
So the utility of Jewel and Crystal is the same. So that means that if there are no other inputs of price, which there are many other inputs, but if there were hypothetically no other inputs, based on only summoning utility alone, one would expect the price to be very similar because they have the same utility, right? However, there are inputs. There's inputs of popularity of chain. There's inputs of fee sharing in the jeweler, future contribution of external protocols that provide fee sharing in the jeweler, maybe on one chain versus the other, how much you're bridging into one, how much people are lending. So there's a lot there. Also, Jewel has an added component of being used for gas, so incremental utility there. But because the supply is less, there are things that will impact how Jewel and Crystal might move and trade and be used, but utility is not one of them. If we were to say that you need 1/4 the amount of Crystal to summon, I think that would actually cause a lot of what I will interpret as chaos between the tokens. It'd be really hard to understand where they fit in. But right now, you would expect if one token were to be greatly priced higher than another, and the only thing people were focused on between the two tokens was summoning, then you would actually have some cross-chain movement where if it's twice as expensive to summon in Crystal Vale, for example, I might trade some of my Crystal out for Jewel, move over to Sarandale, promoting multi-chain gameplay, and summon there. And then that will ultimately raise the price of Jewel, maybe slightly lower the price of Crystal, and have them come in equilibrium. Am I predicting that they'll always be the same? No, because people are people, and they're going to, in different times, like one realm more than the other. Currently, we have a Gen 0, I think we're calling it raffle still, based on the jeweler in Crystal Vale. Therefore, premium is expected since that's not existing currently in Sarandale jeweler. And over time, there will be other inputs that cause a basis in price, but we don't manipulate that price. We let the community and the participants set it. But when it comes to summoning, utility of Jewel and Crystal are the same. The lower supply just means that the volatility, all else equal, of Crystal relative to Jewel, if they were to both experience the same amount of movements and capital, the volatility would be higher in that of Crystal. So I think one fundamental characteristic of Crystal relative to Jewel that one could make pretty confidently is that all else equal, Crystal will probably move up and down a lot more. And I think we should all expect that. If we see Crystal moving a lot, got a lot less supply long term, A, but also it's much newer. So there's much less supply, just period, B. So more volatility is probably the main thing to look at. But when it comes to summon utility, same.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Perfect. One last I did want to bring up, because it's come up in the chat a couple of times, so I was going to put Dreamer on the spot for a moment. I apologize, but there have been many people asking about a chicken, so I was going to see if you wanted to just comment on that real quick.
About chicken game on Avalanche? Yeah. So I think we are in talks with many different games and protocols. In reality, we end up talking to each maybe once every week or two. I think we're due for a chicken catch-up. So if people are reaching out for chicken to be supported, really the easiest thing initially is to have profile pictures be supported. We already have that in there. I think we want to be able to identify their NFTs. And then I think our last discussion and meetup in Barcelona, we're learning more about the different games, and what we're going to be catching up with them to see exactly how they see they could use our tokens in their game. I'm still unsure. No clear report there. But if people are asking for it in the chat, I'll make sure that we try to talk to them this week, because I haven't caught up with them for a bit. No material update, unfortunately, for the chicken requests.
Fair enough. And then one last thing that I'm going to add real quick, because it's also being asked a bunch. We do not have a date that we are going to give out currently for the advanced quests or the stat quests or the pets. All we will say is that all three of them are heavily in progress. All three of them are en route, but we are not going to commit to a hard date on this AMA, especially because none of us are the ones building them, but they are all in progress. They are all nearing. We're going to have more stuff coming out. We're going to have a new roadmap coming out shortly for you. There's going to be more information, just not live on this AMA. So with that, we're going to wrap up. If anybody has anything last minute to add in, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I'm just going to say that I appreciate all of you being here, both on the stage and the audience, and hand over to Dreamer to close us out.
Cool. Thanks. I feel like I ended up talking a whole lot, so apologies there, but I think everybody we have on stage, they represent their own departments. There's a lot of other people on the growth side that are working hard to really build this out in a way that is long lasting and professional and sustainable, taking baby steps and now bigger steps and bigger leaps, where we're not just doing, hey, we're going to show up at one event. Now we're looking to map these out and be at the big and medium events, not just one here and there. That's really exciting. I think the efforts to not just educate people on avoiding bad websites, but getting out there and tackling them to try to protect our user base and new people joining, and not only give best practices, but get a number of sites taken down. That's huge. Getting a step further and providing not just, I don't want to use a bad word here, but not just like flimsy throwaway merch, but real high quality stuff that's well designed from professionals and built from providers that make really good stuff, and then connecting that to store and using Jewel to actually pay for it. All these things are so exciting, and we see what we've done with the community, with UNICEF and the donations, and really trying to open our ears and say, hey, who else should we be considering down the road? From a growth perspective, if we look back at the last 2 months, we've done a lot. And as we think about the team, it's so large now. I think it's very easy to be like, you're only focusing on one thing at a time. If you're doing this, if you're doing A, you're not focusing on B. And what we're trying to do is really have a good chunk of us focus on like the main content, main combat, main story quest, and then having a subset focusing on like mini features and mini games as well. But a third piece that I guess hasn't really fully been identified is our group here, where we're focused on growing the business and marketing. And a lot of that happens in completely separate, and sometimes it overlaps, but the efforts are real. And I think there's a lot of time spent. We're constantly attracting new talent and a lot of new partnerships reaching out. So I appreciate everybody's support. I think there's a lot of support on social media where people not only, but they reshare things and they share their experience and they take a picture of what's happening and let others get excited about it. Those that are active in Discord, welcoming others in. I think we invited all those to do that at launch. And it just seems like we've had a very healthy interaction with those that have joined and a good community as we have built. So I just wanted to really celebrate all the growth efforts and just say we're really just getting started. I think as we look 6 months to a year from now, look at our merch, look at our charitable efforts, look at how big our community will be, our presence at events, whether small with marketing or some merch or like full blown like team being present, and then all the information available on our sites as well. we're building. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for supporting us. And we're just doing our best to represent the DeFi Kingdoms community as we go throughout the world, both in person and digitally. So thanks all.